You are now tuned in to the Project 365 experience.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Project 365 podcast. Another Olympic episode. We now have our matchups for the knockout stage, or the quarterfinals, as some people would call it. And who else would I rather break it down with than Josué Sédrjo? Josué, how you doing? Are you ready to do this?
I'm ready to do this podcast. I'm not sure I'm ready for what's going to happen at 12 o'clock tomorrow, but we're going to get into that.
We're going to get into that. Oh, yeah. I agree. It's been a very exciting tournament. This is just talking to you. What has surprised you from this tournament so far? Is there anything that you're looking? And I'm putting you a bit on the spot, but I'd love to know if there's something that kind of stood out to you.
I'm not sure about surprised. I think more content. Like I had a feeling going into this tournament that there was a chance that this was one of the most competitive Olympic fields since, we'll call it modern times. So let's say since 1992 when the Dream Team was introduced, and now it was like more common for NBA players. Just common for NBA players to participate in the Olympics actively. I think since then, overall, to me, it's been the most competitive field that I can remember. I wish I had some stats and numbers to back this up, but just like if you flipping from game to game, going in from random matchup to random matchup, it just felt there was more games where you tune in middle of the third quarter and you're like, the game is in the balance. Maybe you have a strong sense that somebody's going to win. Maybe you're confident somebody's going to win. But if you're just tuning in the middle of the game at midway through the third, it's a competitive game. And I think a lot of it has to do with how good offenses have been, like how refined, on point, maximizing the use of each team's personnel. It's been really good, like just generally speaking. I think that has me content from my expectations for the tournament coming in.
No, I agree. I think it's been a lot of fun for me to watch. Personally, there's been a lot of teams, for instance, that I haven't had the chance to keep up with. But now I kind of get the chance to see some of these players. And again, like you said, there's a lot of players stepping up. And the offenses have just been really good, in my opinion. We had the opportunity to give our listeners at the beginning, pre-tournament, a bit of a power ranking where we had placed the teams that were participating in this tournament in tiers. I thought this might be a good opportunity for us to potentially re-rank those now that we're going into the playoff, the knockout stage. So I would love to hear from your standpoint. Let us re-rank the final 8 teams of this tournament, and I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, I went through that exercise at the beginning of the tournament. I personally, I use this to kind of gauge expectation and be able to not overreact to certain results. I just feel like if you have a certain basis of expectation, it helps you adapt more. But without further ado, I had 5 tiers going into the tournament. Now that we're in knockout round, I think it's only fair that we have 4 tiers because the last tier should be the teams eliminated. So in tier 4 right now, I would have Brazil and Greece, both of them. In tier 3, I would have France and Australia. For Australia, they were a tier 3 team before. For France, they went down for me from tier 2 to tier 3. In tier 2, where I only had France and Serbia, I've kept Serbia, but I've added Germany and Canada. And in tier 1, still by their own self, until proven wrong or something unforeseen happens, I think it's only fair that Team USA, as the number 1 overall seed going into the eliminating rounds, the quarterfinals, I think it's only fair that they stand alone in tier 1. So with that said, I think the point to start looking at the quarterfinals should be a matchup between tier 2, a team in tier 2 and a team in tier 3, which is Canada, France. And my friend, you've done a really good job and an interesting way to, an interesting approach to analyze and think about this game. Why don't you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so it was something that I got a chance to do in one of my business classes, and this is called like a SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis will basically just be about how, when we have a case study, we're looking at each letter of the SWOT analysis means something, but it's a way for you to have a general understanding of what you're trying to approach. From a basketball standpoint, what that does is that kind of provides us with our scouting reports in a way. So SWOT analysis, the S is strengths, W would be the weakness, O will be the opportunities that we have for success, and T will be the threats for the success of our operation, if that's how we call it. So, yeah, do you wanna go ahead with yours, and then after I'll chime in?
Should we start with Canada or should we start with France? Because Canada is where my 12 o'clock becomes very stressful tomorrow. And France is where my 12 o'clock becomes just as much stressful tomorrow. So which one should we start
All right,
with?
let's do it. Let's go with Canada.
So if we're looking at Canada, following your SWOT analysis, so the strength would be defensive energy and pressure, as well as depth of the roster. The weakness would be size and interior defense. The opportunities would be playing in transition, having multiple offensive pressure points, and the small ball lineup. That's the opportunities for success against France in this matchup specifically. And the threat in this specific matchup is the offensive rebounding and the foul trouble. So let's start with the strengths. You said defensive energy and pressure, and as well as, defensive energy and pressure, so the defense in general, and the depth of the lineup. So if we look at the last game that Team Canada played against Team Spain, the bench finally was productive. It wasn't perfect, but it was productive. The starting lineup, I believe the stat right now is that the starting unit is plus 21 in a combined 25 minutes when they're on the floor together. So when they're on the floor, not only do they win by a lot. This starting lineup against Team France starting lineup, the strength of Team Canada's defense is guard and perimeter defense. The weakness of Team France in their attack is perimeter play. So the strength of Canada goes directly against the weakness of France. So that is a massive strength going into this matchup. I couldn't agree more. The second part, you said depth of the roster. I mentioned that the bench played a lot better. I think specifically this is the game where Jamal Murray and Andrew Nembhard both have to be good at the same time. Either Jamal's playmaking has to translate to Andrew's scoring, or Andrew's scoring has to create either blitz, double team opportunities for Jamal to cash in on the weak side. One or the other. But it has to sync together. Like that is, if there's gonna be a good advantage for Team Canada going this, that has to be it.
No, I agree, and it's like just to piggyback on that. I think one of the reasons why I had put that was Jamal Murray leads Team Canada right now with 4.7 assists off the bench.
With as tough as things have been, think about like he's the best playmaker right now. So imagine if the scoring comes along with it. Crazy.
Yes, you got to keep going.
No, that's it. No, this is a great start. You're doing great. You're doing great.
Yeah. So I think like for me, that's kind of like the part where when I hear you talk about how each one of them kind of complements each other, you sense Andrew Nembhard comes into this game with, I don't know if it's just situation because of what happens with Indiana, with how they're so focused on scoring the ball, but offensively, it's not like he lacks any confidence right now. He comes into it and is ready to shoot. And you connect that with somebody that eventually can potentially have a signature game in this tournament, and you have somebody who has a lot of supreme confidence and in last game was our second leading scorer. You could set yourself up for really having something going into that game.
I mean, I don't think. I mean, we said bench, right? So there's Nickeil Alexander-Walker. His ball pressure has to be the best it's been this tournament. Like it was a little better against Team Spain. It has to be this has to be the best defensive game of the tournament for him by far. This is the best opportunity he's going to have, considering the strength of Team France guards. Ken Birch is going to have his opportunities with the depth of Team Canada and the requirement from a big defense standpoint. The task is huge, literally and figuratively. He's got to be good. He's got to be good. You get 4 opportunities at the basket, you got to make 2. You got 4 verticality challenges, you can't get call fouls for 2 of them. He's gonna matter quite a bit. You want to throw Trey Lyles. Like, if they ever decide to go small ball lineup, hey, let's draw Victor or Rudy out of the basket areas to open up the paint for have the guards to drive in. Or if they're sitting back, make Trey pay. And their defensive strategy is make Trey pay. I didn't say that right. This is bad podcasting. Make Trey. Make him punish us for our defensive coverage. He's got to knock down his threes. Pick and pop, off ball movement. Like, he's going to have the entirety of the bench is going to have an opportunity to bring a contribution. However, if Jamal Murray and Andrew Nembhard have a bad game, the rest of that bench is not going to pick up the slack for them. So they have to be the main engine of the bench lineups without question. And, like, to your point, it was Andrew's best game in the tournament last game. Jamal Murray's playmaking pop last game. Like, there's good driving. There's a couple very good dump-off passes. There's a clear – I mean, this was the game before against Team Australia, but at one point he drove right. He attacked the paint. He backed up, had to switch, backed up, attacked right to go over the card because the closest man in help wasn't at the nail, so there was opportunities to get to the basket. The big behind him was not on the left side, but was on the right side. So he knew, if I get to the middle of the paint, I'm going to draw this big. I'm going to open up the pocket pass for, at the time, Ken Birch. Whoever big is on the floor at that time, for that big to finish, because I'm going to be drawing 2, and that's an easy dump off passes. And now, like, you're a big guy at the Olympics in the dunker spot. Like, this is what you do. Like, this should be an easy opportunity. So that has to pop. He did it. He had a turnaround I believe in the first half, right? It was right elbow, drove right. Second quarter, drove right, had a turn, stop, fade away 2, and it went all net. Again, it didn't translate to the rest of his efficiency. But one thing he's going to have in this game is a bunch of switches, because France will challenge him. They'll allow Rudy to switch on him. They'll allow Victor to switch on him. They'll even allow Gershon Yabusele to switch up on him. He's got to punish him. Either by driving by him, creating playmaking, or shot creation opportunities, a step back 3, a step back 2, creating enough space because those arms are long. Did I mention those arms are really, really, really long? And yet he still needs to have a good game. I don't know about 50% from the field being the bar, but I know it cannot be a 1 for 7, a 2 for 10, a 2 for 11. He's got to be able to punish the defense for the opportunities he's going to have.
I agree. Before we had just talked quite very quickly, talk about the impact of Shea from what you've seen in this tournament and what kind of impact he can have on this game.
So I think for me, his finishing at the rim is going to be a massive barometer. Not necessarily he needs it because he's so good that he can find ways to create enough space in the mid-range and still be mightily efficient. But I just think that France is going to take something away from him. They're most likely, knowing that the drive is the biggest strength of his game, what happens that France's biggest strength of their defense is their interior defense. So I believe, this is just what I believe. I think they're going to force him and play him to drive and trust that their interior defenders will make his shot attempt so hard and so difficult at the rim that he's going to be inefficient. So if that's the case, what's the counter? What's the plan B? Is it for Shea to drive as deep as possible in the paint, knowing that it's going to create some kind of collapse? Or is it that knowing that they're playing you to drive, is it pick and pop opportunities? Is it a quick swing into a DHO? Then maybe you're catching the ball either on the weak side, either you're getting rid of it early to catch up on a curl afterwards. what's the counter to that? And I think that is just as important as it's just as important as scoring in transition for him, because he's our best transition player for sure. If he scores in transition, France is going to be cooked. I mean, it goes without saying. But in the half court, I believe he's going to be forced into some counters, and how he's comfortable and how he deals with that will go a long way into determining how good Team Canada's offense is. Now, we've done a lot of praising, but we need to be aware of some of the weaknesses, right? And we mentioned that, and I've made the joke that about the arm lengths of Team France inside. Well, for Team Canada, the size and the interior defense is going to be a struggle. A struggle not in the sense that they're incapable, in the sense that simply you're going up against an opponent that's literally their best strength. You're going up against one of the 5 most tall human ever recorded playing in the NBA, who is, by the way, playing at home, who's been intent on making a statement on this tournament the entire time. They're coming off a very, very bad performance against Team Germany, where they lost the lead of the group, where internally their toughness was questioned, their will to win was questioned, their coaches, and even the head coach, Vincent Collet, questioning their commitment to winning. So a lot of personal stuff that hits at the ego of a basketball player and an athlete. Well, by the way, did I mention they're playing at home? So these guys are going to be motivated beyond belief. One of the ways that you act on this motivation is crashing the offensive glass. And for me, what is going to be a determining factor is at halftime, is Team Canada in foul trouble? Like actively in foul trouble. Not the first quarter, not the third, but halftime. Because if at halftime you can't come in and play regular lineups in the third, which has been Team Canada's best quarter, especially defensively, that puts a massive advantage. That gives a massive advantage to Team France. So that has to be absolutely a main focus of emphasis.
I think with the offensive rebounding, you mentioned it before. One of France's strengths, and I think we continue on this France analysis, on this France SWOT analysis. I think one of their advantages too is the fact that they do have Victor, and Victor has proven to be very productive in these Olympic Games. I think this is just me looking at it from the outside as a coach. Sometimes I question if Victor kind of settles a little bit to shooting threes at certain times.
He doesn't just settle a little bit; he settles a lot.
He settles a lot
because he's no, he does, and that was part. No, you don't have to be nice. I mean, the numbers will prove it out. Yeah. The film will prove it out, right? Like that was part of his big evolution towards in the last NBA season, right? Where in the beginning of the season he went from a shot creator and a shot a play initiator to a play finisher, right? Instead of having the 3-ball being a part of the base offense and the rim attacks and the lobs being counter, he switched those around, right? The rim attacks and the lobs were the basis, and the 3-point shot was the counter. Well, that same approach, he has to bring that to this game. In the tournament, he started out where it wasn't perfect, but it was closer to 50-50, and then kind of got away with that as France struggled with their 3-point shooting and their spacing throughout the tournament. Well, in this game specifically, I don't think there's a world where he is strictly a spacer where Team France wins this game. It has to be a blend. It has to be a mix, and it has to be a mix that he dictates. It can't be Team Canada saying, okay, on this, you're out there spaced out? Yeah, that's fine. Just let him shoot. It can't, for Team France perspective, it can't be that. It has to be here's an opportunity for a pick and pop. Let's run that and let's punish.
France's weakness in this tournament has been their guard play. As we wrap up just this matchup, France his weakness has been like just the guard play, just being able to make good decisions. Sometimes for maybe a young player like Victor, it's hard for you to kind of pick your spot, especially when you don't have solid guards that can kind of get you the ball in the spots where you need to. So a lot of time you kind of tend to try to feel like, okay, I just got to go initiate myself and whatnot. So talk about the guard play on the French side. Talk about some different things that need to, for instance, fall in line for them to have a chance in this matchup.
I mean, Matthew Strazel saved their asses against Japan, straight up. I'm using a swear word here, but that and one 3-point shot with 4 seconds left. I mean, it's the stuff made out of miracles. You make documentaries about shots like that. And to be clear, it was a foul, right? The defender had his hand on his hip as he rose up. So I know some pictures show him with his hands off while he's in the air, but the foul was called at the beginning of the shooting motion. Let's just put that aside. He made the shot like that. It's an insane shot crazy. Under insane pressure. They needed that to beat Japan. No disrespect to Japan, but there's a reason they were in my tier 5. As well as they played, they were not considered a contender for the Olympic gold. And for Team France, their goal is to win the gold medal on their home soil. So that's just to illustrate how quality the guard play hasn't been good enough. Evan Fournier has struggled massively. I mentioned Mathieu Strazel. They've tried some Nicolas Batum playing initiation. It's been a really, really big struggle. So they're gonna have to be very calculated. They're have to be incredibly efficient on all the offensive glass because I expect a lot of misses on the initial shot attempts. So the offensive glass is going to be massive for them. That's probably their biggest opportunity in this game. But the problem is they're not going to have probably a lot of good looks, and they're going to create a lot of turnovers, which then inversely for Team Canada, that's the biggest opportunity. You asked me how I felt about Shea in this game. Like, I know he loves to gamble and go after steals because his arms are so long. I promise you, man, if you're patient in this game, it will come to you because you're going to have opportunities because the guard play of Team France has just been spotty.
Let us also remind the listeners that Canada won the group of death. They finished with a 3-0 record in Group A. France going 2-1 in Group B. It'll be interesting just for us to see. Anything else that you wanted to hit on before we move on to the next matchups?
This is a rematch. We must mention this is a rematch of the Canada-France game in the first matchup last year at the World Cup, where Team Canada dominated, won by over 30 points here. I'm trying to remember the score. This is my mistake. I know it was by over 30. So this is a rematch. So there is quite a bit of experience from in recent experience between these two teams. And let's also mention that they played in exhibition. It was 95-65. There you go. That's the score I was looking for. So it was 30 points. And they played in exhibition a couple of times. And I think both teams took some lessons out of that. Those were kind of the, behind the scenes, if you talk to some people that were either played or were in attendance, I think both teams took some very key takeaways out of that. So let's see how they go about and apply them. But I know I'm going to be at 12 o'clock. I'm going to be very nervous. I'm going to be very stressed out.
Hey, we'll be here, and we're going to talk about it right after. Let's dive into our next matchup. We have the winners of Group B, finished with a 3-0 record, Germany, versus Greece. Greece finished 1-2 and made it, and this is interesting, the point differential being so important in this tournament. Greece made it through after Serbia beat South Sudan. So that was interesting where, Greece was, at the beginning of the day, Greece was at the end of the group, was at the bottom. But then with that win, and we're going to talk about it, that win against Australia, they won 77-71, kind of pushed them up into this little situation. So it's been an interesting thing to just keep up with this tournament. But for the rest of the matchups, what we're going to do is we're going to have 3 swing factors that we're going to look at that, in our opinion, is something that can swing the game. So, so for Greece, Germany, what are the 3 factors that we're going to look at?
But before we touch on that, remember when last time we talked and I outlined the scenario for the Greece-Australia game to mean so much for Team Greece?
It's crazy, yeah. Oh, my God.
So Greece got in because South Sudan didn't score 8 more points.
That is crazy, man.
That's it.
Oh,
It's
Yeah.
it's that simple. And
Yeah.
Spain was about to go through the quarterfinals. Well, sorry, for Spain to go through the quarterfinals, they need to score 4 more points in that game and win that game, and they would have been through the quarterfinals. And instead, they're not. They're just completely out for 4 points. When I say this Olympic field as a whole has been
Yeah.
incredibly competitive, like that's a prime example of that. Because
Yeah.
you literally had to get through all 3 games to know for sure
Yeah.
whether you were going to get through or not. But now that we're through the quarterfinals, 3 swing skills for Greece, Germany. For me, the first one, it starts with Franz Wagner's individual shot creation. He's been amazing to start this tournament. He was very good in the World Cup last year. He's been even better this year. In the specific, I'm thinking late first quarter, late third quarter, when he comes back in after the initial sub in those quarters. I think those are going to be situations where he's going to be going up against some of the Greece bench players. And I think specifically in those situations, he has to be incredibly efficient. The Germany offense is really good, really efficient, really free-flowing. What elevates them from a good offense to a Olympic gold contending offense is Franz Wagner's shot creation because he's been that good in this tournament. So it's not that they necessarily need him to win this game from a sense of like he has to be amazing, but if he's amazing, I don't think Greece stands a chance. So that's the first swing skill for me. What's the next one for you?
Definitely. You know what? Like, I want to add on a little bit to the Franz Wagner shot creation because I think what ends up happening when Franz starts cooking the way that he does, everything kind of starts opening up for their team. And it's interesting to see because here are some numbers for the listeners. As of right now, Dennis, in the first 3 games, Dennis is 9 for 22 for 3.
Dennis Schroeder,
France,
that is, right?
Dennis Schroeder, 9 for 22. And he has a couple of, off the dribble, threes versus some switches. Franz Wagner is only 4 for 19, right? But he's handling a lot of the offense and he's creating a lot for his teammates. Daniel Theis is 3 for 5. We have Johannes Voigtman is 3 for 7. And we have Isaac Bonga has been like my surprise, and I underlined him like 3 times. Isaac Bonga is 7 for 10 for his threes.
I bet.
In the first 3 games. And Andreas Obbs, who's supposed to be, they view him as more like their threat from 3. He's 5 for 13. So as a team, they're shooting 37.9 from 3. So you combine that with the Franz Wagner shot creation. Once you start hitting threes, Franz Wagner can sometimes attack those matchups one-on-one. And he's done a really, really, really good job at just picking his spots and attacking matchups from different situations.
I mean, yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think you said Isaac Bonga is 7 for 10. Like if he goes 3 for 3 in this game, Greece is in big trouble because a lot of his minutes will match up against some of the Greece bench minutes. He's going to be if he goes 3 for 3 and Greece doesn't pay attention to him in the scouting report, that like big trouble's coming. I wouldn't recommend that. Inversely, I see Greece 3-point shooting as the second swing skill in this, the second swing factor in this matchup. I don't think there's a world where Greece makes 6 or 7 threes and win this game, like strictly by rim pressure, because Mo Wagner and Daniel Theis are going to be good enough, at least good enough in rim protection scenarios to prevent Greece offense from singing simply by living at the rim. So for me, it has to be like a 10 for 28, 11 for 29, 12 for 31 type of nights from Greece, knowing they're not prolific. But whether it's Papa Nikolaou, Nikolaithis in catch and shoot scenarios, Thomas Walkup, like they're a team that shoots 30% from 3 in this tournament. For context, I don't think they can shoot 30% in this game from 3 and win this game. And to give like an idea, like that'd be 10 for 33. I think they have to go 10 for 27, 10 for 28 maybe at best, at worst, for them to win this game.
Absolutely. A spotlight player that I have is Vasilis Toliopoulos. He's a 6'2 guard that handles a lot of the offense when Nick Kalaitis goes to the bench. He's averaging 12 points per game. Has really benefited from Giannis being such a focus of other teams defensively, which can potentially open up certain situations. But he's proven that at the end of shot clocks, he can make a lot of good decisions. And that is also our third point, right? We're Greece scoring in late clock.
No, exactly. I mean, I think we both agree that Giannis is going to be good no matter what. You know, whether he scores 25, 26, 34, 35, like, he's going to have an impact on the game. He's going to get his points. Even if he's not, let's say, like, terribly efficient, let's say it's like an average night at the office, he's going to have a good enough impact in his game, and it's going to be a good enough matchup for him to impose his will. But then late clock, we know that individual shot creation is not his forte. It's not his strength. So where does Greece go to? Is Thomas Walkup in a rhythm? Can Nick Kalaitis, summon the energy of the Fontaine de Jouvence of the youth of the old days? Like, where does Greece go to? Right? Is it going to be we're running a pick and roll, Giannis on the move, and then let's play out of that? Is it going to be Giannis on the catch and the low post, and then we're playing out of that? Is it going to be Nick Kalaitis initiating, try to attempt to get in the lane and draw help? Like, how are we going about this in late clocks? Because Dennis Schroeder is going to get into Nick Kalaitis' jersey and make him extremely uncomfortable. So if he takes him away, where does Greece go to generate movement and to generate open looks in late clock situations?
And Germany is that good where Giannis could score anywhere between 30 to 35, and you could still look at the clock and be down 15 to 20 points.
Their offense is that good. Yeah, no, their offense is that good. And again, this is the same core of players that won the World Cup last year. So there's a lot of continuity. There's a very good chemistry amongst the group. And there's a lot of familiarity. And a lot of guys are ferocious competitors. So they're not going in there intimidated. They're not going there feeling a sense of pressure. They're only seeing an opportunity to add to their medal total.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to our next matchup. So we have Serbia, who finished with a 2-1 record in Group C. And they're going to be facing up against Australia, being 1-2 in Group A. Couple things that we're going to be looking at. Josué, we talked about it. Serbia, offensive rebounding.
Yeah, and Australia, that's another team that can thank Team Canada for their win against Spain, because had Spain won, they would be through instead of Australia. So again, to the point about thinking about the Olympics being a given, a guaranteed, that's not how it works. The field is that competitive. But looking at Serbia specifically, yeah, their offensive rebounding, I mean, you look at the front line, whether it's Nikola Jokic or is this Milutinov, any of those guys in the front line can absolutely punish you beyond belief. Their guard play is good. It's been, solid. Bogdanovic hasn't been amazing, but he's been just okay. But where they punish you is big-to-big passes. It's short, guys in the dunker spot. It's multiple tip-ins after the initial shot attempt. Those guys are very comfortable in FIBA rules, so ball around the cylinder, like they know when to tap in, when not to tap in to create goaltends. So if they are prolific and proficient in that area, they will win this game. I don't think there's a scenario where they dominate the offensive rebounding category and Austria still sneaks away with a win.
I like that you mentioned Bogdanovic's name. Bogdanovic is not loud when it comes to just the scoring right now in this tournament, but he's 9 for 17. He's making about 3 3-pointers per game, but those averages went up because he made 6 versus South Sudan. So grabbing offensive rebounds, like you said, can really open up maybe. And what you don't want if you're Australia is to give a player like that some kind of daylight, right? Where he can score and make threes off of offensive rebounds. Mm-hmm.
Well, the Australian answer to Bogdan Bogdanovic is Patty Mills. And Patty Mills, the same way Bogdanovic can have an impact on this game, I think Australia needs Patty Mills to have a good game, even more so than Serbia needs Bogdanovic. A lot of the base offense of Austria is designed and revolves around Patty Mills running around multiple screens, going multiple ways after multiple handoffs, creating multiple defenders on him, drawing multiple defenders on him beyond the 3-point line. If he is either inefficient, so 1 for 9, 2 for 11, or ineffective, not being able to get open, not be able to make the next pass, either it's out of their pocket or to the big at the elbow, to whether it's Jacques Lindell or anybody else as a release valve, the Australian offense is not going to be good enough. It's not going to be good enough. It's not going to be efficient enough. It's not going to be prolific enough for them to overcome the size disadvantage they have. So I don't really see a scenario where Patty Mills has a bad game and Team Australia wins.
And going back to what you said, if Patty Mills can really get into like that kind of rhythm where now just him kind of flinching, there's 3 guys that maybe just flinch a little bit now that he's at that point. Well, that's where a player like Jacques Lindell has proven that he can be a very efficient player. Jacques Lindell has really shown that he can take advantage of mismatches and that kind of stuff. So that kind of leads to us looking at what's going on in the middle, because we had spoken before. We were talking about how both of these teams really pride themselves on being the more physical, tougher team. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Well, a big part of the Australian identity is bringing rugby mentality and rugby habits to any other sport that they do, because rugby is such a core of the identity. Well, that applies to basketball. They pride themselves on being the bully on the block and being the toughest in the interior, toughest in initiating contact on the offensive end in physical drive, toughest in defending guards at the point of attack and being able to defend and make guards uncomfortable. Serbia in Europe, on the European stage, fashioned themselves as the bullies on the block in Europe as well. A, with the front line, and B, with simple, let's call it Serbian ethos of like nothing fades us and you're just never going to intimidate us under any circumstances. So what happens when unstoppable force meets unmovable objects? Who wins? Because to me, a lot of the answering that question will determine a lot, not just what happens in starter minutes, but also bench minutes. And if Serbia can't win the non-Jokic minutes, the gap is going to be significant enough that Australia will make a run. And if Australia is making a run, that means the Dante Exum, the Dyson Daniels, maybe Josh Giddey going up against some bench units. They're going to be starting to feel themselves. And if they're starting to feel themselves, the toughness factor and the intimidation factor, they will win that category, and that will lead to an Australia win. So the biggest bully on the block leads to who wins the non-Jokic minutes, which will then also swing and decide who wins this game.
It'll definitely be something that we're going to watch. Like you said, I like what you said about the bench, because I think like this is something that we've seen in this tournament. We talked about how with shorter time, there's maybe teams have to play at a higher level of intensity and have to maximize their possession. So yeah, definitely be something that we'll be interested in seeing. So for our final matchup, we have Brazil. Brazil finishing 1-2 in Group B, and they got in really off the skin of their teeth by the signature win versus Japan. They won 102-84. Obviously, Japan didn't have Rui Hachimura, but they still won that game. And congratulations, your gift for making it through. You get to play against the United States of America in the group stage. So yes, USA finishing 3-0 in Group C. Josué, since everybody's talking about USA, let's talk about Brazil. What does Brazil need to do to give themselves a chance? Since it's no lie, they are the massive underdog in this game.
There's no question, and I don't think you're going to tune into this podcast and hear about a miracle solution for Brazil to win this game, or a secret that nobody's uncovered that's going to allow Brazil to win this game. Like, it's not going to be like that. Like, let's not kid ourselves. USA would have to massively underperform for them to lose this game. But if we're going to identify again some swing categories or some swing factors, for Brazil to win or for something unexpected to happen in this game to give themselves a chance. The first one is contested Brazilian shots, specifically the number of contested Brazilian shot attempts that are going to happen in this game. And the reason for me that I'm identifying that first category as a swing factor is that if every single Brazilian shot attempt is contested, that means Team USA is focused. That means they are committed. That means they're flying around. That means they're applying the game plan. So if that's the case, I know the Brazilian toughness will be there. I know the physicality will be there. But if every shot isn't contested, it's going to be really, 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 really hard to score. So if that's happening, I think this will swing directly to Team USA's favor. But if they can generate some open looks, then maybe their offense has a chance.
A player that I've been just really locking in on and monitoring very closely from the Brazil side is Bruno Caboclo. Bruno Caboclo, so in terms of staying on the floor, he needs to find a way for him to stay on the floor for the Brazilian side to even get a chance to be in this game. If we're looking at Bruno versus Japan, the one game that they won, he had 17 rebounds versus Japan, right? So total minutes per game. In game 1 versus France, he only had 11 minutes. In game 2 versus Germany, he only had 13. And then the game versus Japan, where he had his 17 rebounds, he ended up playing 30. So you have to imagine that Bruno has to find a way to stay on the court. Because versus Germany, if you can recall, like you remember that game, he fouled out with 13 minutes. And he only played 13 minutes in that game. And at the time of him fouling out, he was almost at a plus 14 in the plus minus category.
No, exactly. I mean, I think he's their most impactful player. Whether it's Gui Santos, Marcelo Huertas, you could argue there are more crucial players simply because their guard play is not exceptional. So then if it falls off the cliff, then they're in bigger trouble. But I don't think there's a world where Bruno Caboclo gets in foul trouble and Brazil wins this game. Just flat out, period. He's their biggest answer and their biggest weapon on the front line, and he's gonna have to find a way to stay on the floor, even though he's going up against Joel Embiid, Anthony Davis, and Bam Adebayo. Which leads me to the third swing factor, and that's going to be if all the Brazilian fans can get together and summon Thanos, because Thanos is the only person in recorded history that has defeated the Avengers, which is who the second unit of Team USA has been. They've been the Avengers. So Brazil has to find Thanos because Drew Holiday with Anthony Edwards, Kevin Durant, Bam Adebayo, and Anthony Davis have been absolutely on it from the beginning of this tournament. And specifically the last game, they found a very, very nice rhythm offensively and defensively. And if they are going to play like that and be connected like that, there's not a world where Team Brazil has a chance. So they need Thanos.
Mm-hmm. And you could imagine just what a luxury it is for Team USA to have
unbelievable,
players like
right?
That, where
it's not fair.
where you're okay with Bam potentially switching on the ball, being on the primary ball handler, and then all you have to do really, if you're Anthony Davis, is just in the back line, just make sure you're active. Just have your hands up, deflect some shots, alter some shots, and then again they're okay with Bam in certain situations pushing the ball up the floor, right? So that's definitely something that we're going to be able to monitor for sure. So these are our matchups that we have. Anything else that you've seen go or that you want to talk about?
So let's mention, to set up the tables, that the winner of Canada-France would then play the winner of Germany-Greece, and the winner of Team USA versus Team Brazil would play the winner of Team Australia against Team I'm blanking out. Team Serbia.
Serbia.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Team Serbia. So in terms of thinking about the bracket in your head, I think it's important to mention. I think the second unit of Team USA is a great example of let's call it natural basketball, like flow, like basketball just being flow, because a lot of what makes that unit sing is just reads, having multiple guys who can shoot, multiple guys who can initiate, multiple guys who can cut, pure unselfishness, enough spacing, enough offensive rebounding, enough screening. Like, if you want to learn about basketball feel, like watching that second unit is a big lesson in that. So just to touch base on that, I think that was important to mention. And I think just overall, I think this might be where the team that controls their emotion the best has a massive advantage in this round of the tournament, because technical fouls count as a personal foul in FIBA play. And I in a one-game scenario where you need sometimes everything to go right, and sometimes just one little thing that goes wrong is a deciding factor in a game. I wonder if there is a situation where a player picks up a technical, again, because of the pressure, the intensity, the moment, something specific happening in the game, whether these are players that are naturally have a reputation for being so emotional or guys that are just being caught up. I just wonder if somebody picks up a technical foul who then has to either go to the bench or gives a technical, a free throw attempt in the ball to the other team. I just wonder if there's going to be a situation where that happens and that swings the game.
There'll definitely be something that we will keep our eye out for that, because as we mentioned, like, possessions are very fragile, especially in the FIBA game. There's a lot that can potentially happen. We're excited to keep up with these matchups. We're gonna put this out and just to get the listeners in tune with what's about to happen. Josué, Sédrjo, it's been amazing. We'll have to do this after we see what the semifinals will be like.
Yep. So we got quarterfinals on Tuesday, semifinals on Thursday, final on Saturday. So it's going to be coming at us very fast and very quick. But I think we're gonna have some good games, man. I'm very, very excited. I'm nervous for tomorrow, but I'm excited for all the rest of all the games to watch. And I think there's going to be some interesting takeaways and some interesting lessons, whether it's offensive concepts, defensive concepts, strategy, individual player performances. There's been, I remember this was the stage where Ricky Rubio, walked into an Olympic gold final at 16 years old and proved that, forget the NBA. It's not really that big of a deal. This Olympic gold medal thing is way bigger. Young players showing that they can take on the pressure and, looking forward to the NBA season, take a step. Or maybe some guys that are, towards their late 30s and towards the end of their career, and that this might be their last shot to win, to play for their their national team, or to win on the international stage. So a lot of drama, a lot of very competitive basketball. I'm excited to look for it. And again, I'm nervous for tomorrow.
We will be back later in this tournament just to give you guys a bit more breakdowns, and hopefully enjoy. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. And please follow Josué on social media, Twitter, or wherever Josué is. And we will be back for some more. Appreciate the listen, and see you guys on the next video.